So that's what we're trying to imagine. So what that lady just described for us in the video is that, so forget about this part for a minute, because she was down at Jones Beach. She said, okay, Long Island gets hot, the air rises, it goes out, sinks back into high pressure over the cooler ocean, it comes back, creates this gear effect. Okay? That's what she just described in that video. Well, guess what? The same thing happens over Connecticut. Connecticut heats up. There's a challenge there. And the challenge is, when Long Island heats up, there's something cooler on this side of Long Island, called Long Island Sound. What's cooler, the ocean or Long Island Sound?
The ocean.
The ocean. Anyone know what Long Island Sound's temperature is now? It's probably about 70. I haven't looked at it recently, but it's probably 70, maybe 71, depending on how deep it is. It will get to 72. What's the warmest the ocean gets on the south side of Long Island?
60.
Mid-60s, 64, 65. Up in Maine, it stays in the 50s. Newport, it stays in the low 60s. You might get 63 in Newport, but it's, the ocean's much cooler up there. So just like this gear effect happens over here, guess what? This gear effect happens a little bit this way. And as the air warms up over Connecticut, it starts this little local gear effect here. As the day goes on, it also, as this heat rises up more, starts to get the bigger gear effect where breeze that goes up over Connecticut will jump all the way across the sound and join this wind here. But what you get when the sea breeze is developing, you get this breeze going up, coming down, and coming down in the middle of the sound. And you then get these two light sea, so this is a sea breeze, you get these two light sea breezes coming into the Connecticut shore and coming into the Long Island shore. So on a quote-unquote thermal day in Long Island Sound, was today a thermal day of RYC? Absolutely. Today was a classic thermal day of RYC because there was no breeze. What direction breeze did you guys start in down at Larchmont? Southwest? So here's the interesting thing about Sound Water, and I told Will this today. I said, Will, you guys are not going to see breeze until 1:30 or 2. And I said, so here, when we race here, right, what I tell people is, the breeze is going to come in, right? It's going to come in as a southerly breeze, but it's going to come in weak and back to the left. And so it's actually better to be on the left side of that breeze because it goes to the left, but there's better velocities in close to shore. I'm like, you don't have that in Larchmont. Anybody know how wide the sound is here? About? So you got about 6 miles here at Connecticut. Okay? It's about 5.5 to the islands, but the islands aren't big enough to have an impact. What's really driving? So you have about 6 nautical miles, and the sound gets narrower down here. So at Larchmont, which is here, Larchmont Yacht Club, you've got about 2.5. So this phenomenon that I've described here with this light breeze coming like this doesn't happen as much down here because it more weights, the sea breeze comes in later the further down the sound you go because it's completely driven by the offshore piece because this is not wide enough to create something. So the sea breeze, believe it or not, will come in later at Larchmont and City Island than it does here. And it comes in even later here than it does up in like the Bridgeport, Niantic area where the sound is 15 to 20 miles across. Now you know why the Long Island Sound is a lighter than you. And it reverses at night. So when you guys are doing the distance racing, think about this, because where is Stratford Shoal?
Right up here.
Thinking about north or south, this is north, this is south, this is middle of the sound. Is Stratford Shoal north, south, or middle of the sound? Middle of the sound. So at some point in time, if it's a thermal race, which means if it's a race like today, and would you want to be distance racing tonight?
Wait, isn't this what happened this year in the race?
Absolutely, yeah.
There was no breeze.
Yeah, except this year was even worse. And here's why this year was worse. which is why I wanted to kill your dad.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't done the Stratford.
Really hot.
It was so hot and it was so miserable. But there was a slightly different weather pattern going on, and the gradient breeze actually did not allow a sea breeze to develop offshore. So while you usually get that great breeze you sailed in for a few hours at Larchmont today, we never got that in the Stratford Shoal a few weeks ago. We never got it. The most breeze we saw was 5.5 knots.
Wait, were you with him?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, I was with him. Yeah, I hadn't done one in a long time. Yeah. And I'm not gonna do one again in a long time. Distance racing in July and August, I'm sorry, should not be allowed in Long Island Sound. I apologize in advance for it, so let's just hope it's not impure. Look, a thermal race is okay. I can deal with a thermal race because you're gonna get a period of good sea breeze and you're gonna get a period of good land breeze. Yeah, you'll have some calm time. But what you don't want is what looks like a thermal breeze when you have a gradient that is fighting. So the problem was we had an upper level northern gradient breeze, which didn't allow this to work exactly the same way because it carried the gear effect too far off. Anyway, okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Does this explain why you've seen what you've seen for the last X number of years in your racing? Because this happens, this is the summer pattern here. You know, if you're racing the wintertime around here, it's different because it's not a thermally driven breeze. It's primarily what's called a gradient driven breeze, which means there's weather patterns, there's differential pressure between high and low. But for the most part, where we are, unless there's a front coming through, we have got a very stable atmospheric pressure on the northern part of the East Coast, and you just don't get breeze. Because you're solely reliant upon natural thermals, sea breezes and land breezes, which, because of the geographic construct of Long Island Sound, doesn't happen so well. Make sense? Why did I have this chart in here? I don't know. I don't remember the question that relates to this, so who will go on? This is interesting though, because what this does show is this shows the direction of the breeze, percentage of time by month. So you can see the velocity. So you can see,
It's like July and August.
yeah, you can see July and August how light, how light the breeze is here, and you can see percentage of time is from different directions, right? So what direction is this varying? What's causing this wind? This is the wind. So this is the wind is blowing from south. So this is a south wind. This breeze here is the thermal breeze. Okay. What's this breeze over here? That's the northwesterly breeze when cold fronts come through here. Okay. And this is the easterly breeze, which happens a lot in the wintertime because the jet stream is south of us. And if we don't get a nor'easter, we get a nor'easter when the jet stream actually comes back up closer to us. Usually it's even further south, so the lows are well further south of us. And so what do we get? We get snow. It's cold, really cold. We get a lot of moisture and the breeze out east. So this is the winter breeze. These are the cold fronts to go through. That's the thermal breeze. And that's a summary of the breeze for the last, all data summarized from 2008 to 2017. Amazing what you can do with big data. Okay, last section for tonight. So we're going to talk clouds. So a little etymology first. So I never studied Latin, but most of the cloud names are rooted in Latin language. And I'll tell you, I mean, there's, out of the 50 questions, there's going to be 3 or 4 at a minimum on clouds. So a little etymology about what some of these words mean. So these will either be part of a name or the totality of a name in a cloud. So the word cirrus, I just remember the U as a curl, a tendril or a curl. Alto, think about music, is high, right? Cumulus, if something has accumulated, it's a big heap, right? Stratos is a sheet or a spread out, it's a layer. And nimbus is a is typically dark. So if you looked out at the clouds that you see now, what kind of clouds do you think they might be? So what do you think? So definitely, you can see a couple different kinds, but why do you think you see stratus? What here tells you that there's some stratus? Yep. What other kinds of clouds might these be? Are the clouds that you see now high or low? How do you know they're high?
Because they don't have no definition.
Yeah. So some people will say, well, wait, those clouds are low. But you got to remember, the Earth is curved, right? And so what we're looking at some people are like, well, those are low clouds that are just off in the distance. Well, no, they're not. Because if this is the Earth's atmosphere is curved to match the Earth, and right, so if we're here and we see some very high clouds above us, guess what our line of sight sees of high clouds over here? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at high clouds. We're looking at altostratus clouds that are way off. Now, I do see a little bit of mix of a couple of places in there, some cirrus, possibly one or two nimbus, but for the most part we're looking at stratus. So here are the cloud names to remember. And the only way I think you guys are going to do this, again, these presentations are available, the study guide is available. I think you just need to go look at it a little bit, because I've come up with no grand scheme to be able to give you the answer to this. But so high clouds: cirrus, cirrostratus, and cirrocumulus. You can kind of see the difference between these. So this is a cirrocumulus that's a little bit patchier, right? This is more of a transparent, wispy kind, right? So those are the high clouds. The mid clouds are the altostratus, the altocumulus, and the nimbostratus. So this would be what you would think of as rain clouds. Mid-level because it's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 feet. You see these all the time in kind of a fair weather, situation. And this is almost like when it's like a hazy kind of level. And then you have low-level clouds, which would be your cumulus, or kind of pure storm clouds, stratus, cumulonimbus. These we saw a couple of days ago, so if anyone was here on Sunday, we saw a bunch of these starting to go off as thunderstorm clouds off in the distance at the end of the octagon. So those are the kinds of clouds. And the question they're going to ask you is, they're going to say something like this, generally gray cloud gives a uniform base. Is it a stratus, a cumulus, that's what the question's going to be. And I wish I had a better way to teach you this without, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a cloud guy, and I can't really tell you what clouds there are in general. I can tell you broadly. It's one of those semi-irrelevant things, but it's on the test. Good? Okay, one more thing. I will just want to pull up, in case you haven't looked at it. So, this is what's up on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't looked at it yet, so what I did is I went through the 2016 and 2015 test, and I basically pulled all the answers in here. This thing's it's 108 pages long. So I actually so this will tell you what the test is exactly like. So let's just take a guess at this one. In which circumstance would you want to use a line that stretches slightly? By the way, the test is a lot about the navigation, but it's also a little bit about some of the practical stuff that you've been learning in the class. So where would you want a low stretch line? Oh, sorry, a line that will stretch slightly, I'm sorry. Well, do you want your higher to stretch? Do you want your boom bang to stretch?
No.
Do you want your sheet to stretch?
No.
Yes?
No.
No.
Anchor.
Might you want an anchor road to stretch?
Yes.
Why?
Waves.
Because waves come, it makes it, so guess what? Boom, that's the answer, right? So I show you the answer, and then I go on to give an explanation about why you want that. So I'm telling you, if you spend an hour with this, maybe a little bit more than an hour, you will do okay on the test.
What do you need to pass?
70. And you can take it as many times as you want.
What is it? How do you find it?
Nikki and I will get the link out, it's still not up. So since we talked about this one tonight, this is so what do you think the right answer is from this one?
Stay away from all metal objects. Oh, that's my guess. I don't think that's right.
Okay. How many people think stay away from all metal objects is the right answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's
And then I go and I show you the lightning guidelines, which I showed you earlier today. Yep. You have an imminent offshore encounter. Okay, let's do one more. Last one. Within a blue section of the chart, there are the following numbers: 17, 4, 15, and 10. These numbers represent
I'm just gonna take a break.
depth of a rock at mean low water, soundings at mean low water in meters,
Yeah.
soundings at mean low water in feet,
That's yellow.
Yes.
or soundings at mean high water in feet.
No. The third.
Love. Third one.
Third. It's combination.
Boom. Right you are. And I actually don't like this question. There's a lot of questions I don't like because charts don't actually show, as we talked about, the soundings in mean low water. So I pulled the language directly from the test. What do charts show? They show the soundings at the mean lower of low water. Right? So of those options, that was the best answer. But if you remember, we talked about the tide cycle, kind of looks like this, right? And so what the charts show is not the average of low water, because that would be this. What it shows is it shows the average of the lower waters in any given day cycle. And it says it right there. So those are examples of, okay, one more. I can't resist. You guys are going to get this one right. So you're in U.S. waters. That means you're in the lateral B system. When you're entering port, you should.
Right.
That's a wrap. Thank you guys. So unless you hear differently, no class next week. You're on your own. I'll send you out this again so you can do this test, and I'm going to make a video in the next couple of days for the advanced part, which will be a little test you can do your own that way.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Captain Greg.
Captain Gray, sorry.
Is the advanced part harder questions?
So the advanced test is, it's basically one question. It's a one multi-part question where they will say, okay, you're running a race from Townsend's Ledge to RGTE to the Green Gong Wan off of Hare Point Shoal, returning to Townsend Ledge. Okay, I'll tell you that. It will say, the first thing is, what's the total distance of the course in nautical miles? It'll say, you have a deviation of 4 degrees east on your boat's compass. What heading should you steer between, whatever mark I said, TE and Can 1? Yeah, so you have to figure out, so you have to say, okay, well, I have to go back and I have to think about, what was that thing? Oh yeah, dead man can't go twice. Yeah. So it's a little complex, right? I think they'll say one that's like, okay, there's a steady 1 knot current setting you at some direction. What course do you need to steer to offset? Those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Yep.